Good morning. We are live. We are hopefully, fingers crossed, live on my Facebook page, Paula at Tailory, on my YouTube channel, and also over on LinkedIn. So this morning we are talking about all things testimonials and case studies, because I know from my own clients that everybody appreciates the power of a testimonial, but most people really cringe at asking for them. And even if they do ask for them, they're not necessarily sure how to ask for them and then what on earth to do when they've got them. And that's testimonials. Then when you take that to the next level and think case studies, we're onto mind-blowing territory. So this morning, I thought I'd have a right good chinwag with the lovely Lucy Jackman to talk all things testimonials, case studies. We're going to have stacks of hints and tips and thoughts and ideas and all kinds of stuff like that. So first off, Lucy, tell us a little bit about you, about who you are, your business, and how you developed your passion for testimonials and case studies.
Thanks, Paula. Morning, everyone. My name's Lucy. I'm a copywriter and digital content writer. So I've been writing now for over 7 years. It's a long time. It's the longest job I've ever had, which is a good sign. So I write for mainly websites and blogs. I write for people, but I absolutely love writing case studies and obtaining testimonials for clients. It's just the best piece of work. It's so rewarding. It's lovely to hear those stories from the client. So what I do is I call up people, interview them, ask them loads of questions about their experience with this particular client, and then I write it all up. And I've drawn clients to tears before with the comments that customers have made about them. So it is, for that reason, one of my favourite pieces of work to do, and I think people should do more of it.
I absolutely agree, totally. So I think with a bit of luck, what we're going to share today are some thoughts and ideas about how to go about gathering testimonials or your info for case studies, and also some thoughts on what to then do with them. So I suppose the obvious question, the place to start is why should people create testimonials or case studies for their business? Why is this important or relevant, and how does it help?
So I think when we've been talking about this before the chat, both of us have used the term gold dust to describe
Yes.
case studies and testimonials, haven't we? Because
Yeah.
they are just that proof that you can do what you say you do. I mean, I don't really like the term social proof. It's a very kind of marketing term, isn't it? But
It's
it's
very, yeah.
basically just people saying nice things about you. Authentic things that people can look at and read and think, whoa, that person does what I need them to do. And I think I trust them to do it because somebody else has said that they can, and they have, and there's some evidence there that they can do it. So it's a way of showcasing exactly what you do, how you do it, what your approach is, what you like to work with, what kind of outcomes you can deliver for people, and really what customers say about working with you, and whether they'd recommend you. And obviously if they're giving you a testimonial, of course they're going to
You
recommend you.
should.
It's
Yeah.
really relatable content, and I think that's why it's gold dust.
Yeah. And there's that old sort of saying, isn't there, which you hear a lot in marketing, which is that thing about anything that you say yourself can be deemed a sales pitch. So whatever you're saying about you and how fabulous you are is always part of your sales pitch. Whereas what somebody else says about you is deemed to be an awful lot more genuine and more natural. And I think something you touched on there is that relatability piece. Because I think if you think that, so often our customers are coming to us and they're in that place of, maybe Lucy can help me. I've heard she's a fabulous copywriter. I want her to help me with this, but how do I know she's that right person for me? If they read feedback from your customers that say, Lucy did this for me and it was amazing, I was worried about working with her because, and when they talk about those really specific things that new prospects are, it's exactly what's going through their head, then like you say, it's really relatable and fantastic at kind of overcoming what might be some of those hesitations for people.
And even better if they can recognise their business in that testimonial or case study, if it's related to their sector or their size of business or the type of work that they do. And the other thing to mention is that Google will love you putting fresh content on your website. So if you're adding case studies, then it's really, really good for SEO. But I guess we're going to chat about that later.
So what's the difference between a testimonial and a case study?
So really simple. Testimonial is a quote from a customer. So it's like a little sound bite. So it could be, as little as 2 sentences, just a few sentences on their experience of working with you and how it benefited their business and how it made a difference to them, and to tell other people what it's like working with you. Whereas a case study goes into more detail about the story of working with you. So you talk about what the problem was in the beginning that they approached you with, how you approached it, how you solved it, what the outcomes were for that business. And you can go into lots of detail with statistics, and which are really, really powerful. If you can say, I changed this from this number to this number, if, for example, you help somebody increase sales from, this percentage to that percentage, then that's really powerful stuff. So a case study just allows you to dig into the detail of that customer journey with you and what the outcomes were.
Fabulous. What do you think somebody should be considering in their business in terms of almost a strategy around testimonials and case studies? What kind of advice do you generally give to people, just in terms of thinking about perhaps who to ask, when to ask, how to ask? Should somebody have a plan for that, or should we just wing it?
I mean, in an ideal world, you would build it into that customer journey. So when a project's finished, you'd go out to them within a few days of them, signing everything off or the relationship ending, and saying, okay, would you be willing to give me a testimonial? And it's really good to do that while it's fresh in that person's memory, because then they've not forgotten all the detail of what you did for them. It doesn't always work that way, because people kind of get to a point and think, oh, I really need some testimonials or case studies, or you're being asked for them, for example, for a pitch. A client says, have you got some examples of work that you've done, and you've not got that information because you've not built it into the customer journey with you. So ideally, while it's hot off the press, really, you should be asking for this type of information. In terms of testimonials, make it easy for people to give you the information. So a top tip I always give to people is ask people questions rather than just saying, will you send me a testimonial? And then they've got to go away and think about it. They've
got to do the work, essentially, haven't they?
If you make it as easy as possible. So you say, okay, here's 3 questions. Send me a couple of bullets on them, and then you can craft it into a testimonial on their behalf and get them to sign it off. That makes it really, really easy for them. And in terms of who to ask for them, warm leads. So you're not going to ask somebody who you think might not give you that testimonial or participate in the study. You're going to ask people who are repeat clients, people who've already referred you to other people, or people are really happy and satisfied with the service that you're giving them. They're the warm prospects. They're the people that are more likely to say yes.
So something I hear an awful lot is people who kind of say, I get it, I understand why testimonials are great, I love seeing them for other people, oh God, but I feel really pushy asking for them, I feel really uncomfortable asking for them because it's all about me, and somebody's paid me to work with me, so aren't I being really cheeky asking them for a testimonial? So what would you say about that, Lucy?
So yes, it's really icky asking for them sometimes. I've done it recently for my website, and it's not good. And I took a slightly different approach and asked somebody else to ask the questions for me, which is another tip you could take. I mean, it's horrible. It's like, going back to corporate days when you had to ask for 360 feedback for your performance review. It's just horrible. But if you've got those warm leads, you've got those receptive people, what's the worst that can happen? They can only say no to you, and that's not going to do any harm. So I would just say be brave and ask that question.
And I always encourage people to think about it the other way around, that when has anybody ever asked you for a testimonial that you thought they were taking the mick? you know, that you thought they've got a cheek asking me for that, or I haven't got the time, I'm not really bothered. When somebody asks us for a testimonial, the response is usually, God, I can't believe I haven't done that already. And absolutely, of course, I'll do it for you. And I think when we're doing the asking, we put all this stuff in our head, but actually customers are really happy to receive that request. And a lot of the time, they love that idea almost of being able to give something back to you. So it's their kind of thank you in a way. So I think there's much less trauma.
Yeah, we do. We build it up in our mind as something that's really horrible, when in fact, if you build it into your processes, which I'm sure you could help people with, Paula, it's something that it's just the next stage of that customer journey, and it becomes routine, and it's not as icky and horrible as you think it's going to be. And like you say, most people will say yes immediately.
Yeah. So then one classic dilemma, and I think we're probably all guilty of being the other party on this one, is a customer who says, yes, absolutely, I would love to give you a testimonial. You were amazing, Lucy. Can't believe I haven't done it already. But then you're a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the line and the testimonial hasn't come. How can you encourage that process along, do you think? Because again, I know that at that point, a lot of people will say, well, I can't possibly chase them. I've asked, so I can't ask again. Whereas people are just in that classic place of everybody's busy, so they still love the idea. The one thing you said is make it easy for them. And I think that's sometimes the challenge, because how often have we sat there and thought, right, I need to do a testimonial for Lucy. God, it needs to be amazing. I need to be really profound and say something fabulous. Okay, I'll do that later. I'll just do this thing first. So when you've got those people that promise you a testimonial and don't come through, have you got any tips on how we can encourage that along?
So there's things that you can do, like asking the questions, like I've already touched on. You can send them a direct link to the platform or the place where you want them to put the recommendation. So if you want a Google business review, ping the link to them, make it really easy for them to just click on it and write a few lines. You know, Facebook, LinkedIn recommendations, you can request those through the platform and make it easy for people to do it that way. I guess if you know, you can send them open questions for them to respond to. You could offer to write it them yourself, so you could, you know, chat to them on the phone and say, okay, well, what would you like to say? I'll draft it and send it over, and you can sign it off. So again, it's just taking those steps just to make it as easy as possible for people to give you that feedback.
So I had a client, and it's a good few years ago now, actually. It was one of my earliest clients and one of my very first group programs. And I think he must have spent about 6 months saying, I'll definitely do that testimonial, I'll definitely do it, I'll definitely do it. And in the end, he just turned around and said, can you just tell me what I'm supposed to put in it? Because you know all the things we've done together and you know all the successes. So can you just tell me? And I said, right, I'll send you some bullet points. So I sent him about 6 bullet points and kind of said, these are the things that I believe are our key achievements in working together. And what I got back was my bullet points was an occasional and the, you know, he just turned those into sentences. And he was like, why didn't you just do that 6 months ago? But I think the instinct on that is almost, well, is this genuine? Is it authentic? Because we know everything's got to be authentic. But, you know, am I cheating if I write it for them? And you touched a couple of times on give them some prompts, suggest writing it for them. So what are your views on that?
I mean, well, I write case studies and testimonials on behalf of people's clients all the time, but I then send those for sign off. So if they're not happy with the words that I've used, or they don't feel like I'm using their voice, it's not them, you know, they can make those changes before you get to that stage of publishing it wherever you share it. So people are generally just really quite relieved for you to take some of the work off their plate, and, you know, for you to help them out as much as possible. And it benefits both of you, really, because when you're sharing it, they're getting some publicity through it as well.
Yes, they are. They're basking in your reflected glory at that point, aren't they? So I suppose that element around authenticity and being genuine is, I certainly think it is perfectly fine to give people some questions, give them some prompts, even suggest, you know, here's the key things from what you've said. These are the key things you might want to include. And in some cases, I think it's perfectly fine to write it for them, as long as you are then going to them and saying, are you happy with this? Does it feel like it's a good reflection and it's the type of thing that you are happy to put your name to? Then to me, that's still absolutely genuine and authentic.
Yeah,
It's
as
just
long as
making
they've
things easy for
agreed it.
everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
So I think some people get a bit hung up on that. So we've got rid of that myth today, so that's fab.
Yeah, bust that myth.
Bust it. Yes, that's what we're all about. What do you think? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Should we go case studies? Should we talk about case study and how much to include in a case study? Because again, I think this is one of the things that really bamboozles people. And I had a client a couple of years ago. We talked about case studies, and then she said, oh, I'll draft one. And she sent me through this thing that was about 1 million pages long and about every single detail of everything she'd ever done with this client. And it was a bit like, oh. So what's your view in terms of how much detail would you go into in a case study? What are almost the key steps in that client journey that you would include? How much detail does it need? How much statistics does it need? I know it's like a massive question.
No, I think every case study needs to tell a story. So in simple terms, it needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you need to start with that problem, that challenge that the client approached you with. So I guess each case study really should just focus on one project, one deliverable, one task that you helped them with. So if you've got a particular service and you want to promote that service, then it should just be about that one service, not about everything you've ever delivered for that client, because it's boring, it's long, it's confusing. People want things that they can hook onto quickly. So you would choose one thing ideally and say, okay, they approached me with this problem. What you did in the first instance, so how you approached it. Did you have a meeting with them? Did you take a brief from them? How did the relationship develop between you? Move on to the middle in terms of delivering. What were the tasks that you delivered? How you delivered them? Were there any problems or issues along the way that you had to get through together and work out with the client, and how did you approach those? And then the end of the story, which is all the outcomes and deliverables that you achieved. And like I say, this is where the numbers are really, really powerful in the outcomes section. So I wrote a case study recently for one of my fab clients, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning it was for a hotel that she'd worked with. And one of the outcomes of her working with them is that they were now placed in the top 10 UK hotels on TripAdvisor. Now that is an absolutely amazing statistic that you can push in people's faces at the top of that case study. And it will really impress potential clients. So we made sure that was at the top of the outcome section. And you talk about your impact and the solutions that you've provided and how it's benefited that business, what problems it solved for them, how it's made life better, easier, simpler, more efficient, So, and then what I tend to do at the end of my case studies, I would then put a standalone testimonial from that client. So you'd incorporate the two together. So that then at the end you've
got the client voice in there as well.
You've got the proof at the end. So you've talked about what we did and how we did it and what the outcomes were. And then the testimonial is the client's opportunity to gush, if you like, about what it's like working with you and how you made a difference to them. So that's generally the structure that I would follow for a case study.
So if you think about those case studies, because there's a lot of stuff you've talked about there, and I think often the danger is people overfilling it, so it becomes more like an encyclopedia. What would you say is the purpose of a testimonial? So if you're thinking about a prospect who's not working with you yet, but obviously your case study is there to help hopefully persuade them that you're the right person. So what do you feel is the purpose of the case study, in the sense of what is it that prospect is looking for from it? And so therefore that's what we need to make sure that we incorporate. Did that make sense with that?
I think so.
I kind of know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not sure I said it.
I think it's really you need to demonstrate in that case study that you can do what you say and claim that you do in your marketing.
Yes.
You know, if you say you can get them in the top 10 on TripAdvisor, you've got to demonstrate you can do it in that case study. If
Yeah.
you say that you work with businesses in the manufacturing sector, provide a manufacturing sector case study on your website.
Yeah.
If you say you work with small businesses, again, the case study should relate to that kind of business. That I would always say to people, what kind of business do you want more of? Write case studies, get testimonials for that kind of service, that kind of client that you want more of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, the key thing is bear in mind that what somebody, a new potential customer looking at that case study, for me, what I think the two key things they're looking for, it's the, what's it like to work with you? Is this a person or a business and an experience that feels good, a good fit for me? But then, as you say, it's the impact piece as well, isn't it? It's, can this person or business generate the results that their marketing promises, or the results that I'm really looking for? And I think sometimes people perhaps get a bit bogged down in feeling like they've got to explain all of their processes. And let's face it, no one's that bothered about the intricacies of all the nitty gritty of how you work, but they kind of want to know what that whole experience feels like and then what the outcome is, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is that fair?
That, you know, as you write, the depth and the breadth of your experience will naturally come across because you're showing that you can do all of these things. But then, you know, you want to work with people that you like and you trust, and a case study is a way to build that trust and build the credibility in you, in your service, and what you can do for people.
So would you say that in a case study, you've touched on some really intriguing points there. You've talked about things like what clients you want to work with, perhaps talking about things like the ideal client. So should you be thinking in case studies about making sure that your personality is in there and making sure that that flavour of how you work comes across, or should it be quite businessy?
I mean, we've used the word authentic already, haven't we? I think it needs to be you. It needs to reflect you, how you work, your personality, your approach to work. Yeah, I think you do need to be yourself, but it needs to match the way you talk, your tone of voice on, if you're posting it on your website, if you're putting it in a newsletter, for example, it needs to match the tone of voice for the rest of your communications. So don't think you need to be overly formal with it unless you're going for some kind of big, you know, corporate tender or something that requires it. You need to adapt it to that kind of situation. But I would just say that if you've done a piece of work and it made you really happy, do a case study on it, because it's going to get you more work that's going to make you really happy.
The clients you love to work with and the projects you love to do, talk about those things. I love that. So then I think one of the most obvious questions, and again, where people tend to run out of ideas a little bit, is what do you do with these things when you've got them? So if you've got a glorious testimonial from somebody who thinks you're clearly the best thing since sliced bread, where do you put it? What do you do with it? How often do you share it anywhere?
Sprinkle the gold dust, put it everywhere. So, I mean, testimonials are really great because if you've got a nice snappy one, you can turn it into a graphic on social media, you know, share it, evidence of what you do, build it into your social media schedule. I've mentioned newsletters just then. You know, you can add a testimonial, pop a case study, link to it in your website, you know, within the newsletter. I think in terms of building a portfolio, case studies really should sit on your website and, you know, help to drive that traffic. People, if they land on your website and they're considering your business as possible relationship, then having that evidence sitting there on a website. So if you provide a service and you've got a case study to go with that, say, here, look, make it easy for them. Here's a case study. Look, click here, and voila, this is what we can do, and what we already have done, and this is what it's like to work with us in this particular service or product.
Yes.
newsletters, website. Yeah, and I would turn it into a PDF as well. So if somebody asks you by email, can you send me some evidence of your work? You just pop it on and it's gone, you know. So you've got that proof you can
got a
send
nice
immediately.
Almost a testimonial brochure.
Yeah.
Love it. So a slight tangent, because you talked about websites there, you got me thinking about something else. What's your view of video testimonials?
Well, obviously I'm a writer, so I don't tend to do video testimonials, but you know, it's whatever you're comfortable with, and it's giving your clients that option as well, because if they're much more comfortable with delivering a video than writing a few sentences, then again it's just making it easy for them to give you what you want. So they obviously have as much value as a written case study or testimonial. So you can put that on your website in the same place. You can share it on socials. You know, it's
I think it can be quite nice to have, if you've got your testimonials page or what have you on a website. I think it can be quite nice to have some written ones and some video.
Yeah,
and then you're giving that the different options to anybody that's coming to have a nosy.
Yeah.
So a slight aside, is there a way to sort of tell that testimonials are genuine, or a way to make it super clear that yours are absolutely genuine? Because I'm sure it was only in the last day or two that I've seen the BBC talking about various online reviews that are all bought and faked and things like that. And we regularly hear about people who kind of say, I've seen such a body sharing 1 million testimonials and I don't believe any of them. So is there anything we can do that really reinforces that our testimonials are absolutely genuine, truthful, they're real people?
Yeah, I had the same thing this week. I was researching for a blog post, and the results that were coming up on Google were just the most random websites. And I just thought, I don't know if I trust you as a source of information. So I was going for the names that I knew, the companies that I recognised were genuine, rather than these random links, because I was thinking, are these actually AI generated? You don't know, do you? I think when it comes to testimonials and reviews, what makes them people suspicious is when you have a lot in a short space of time. So that can be an indicator that a bot has been on and just dropped a ton of reviews for you over 48 hours, for example. So if you're asking for them, this is why it pays to build the requests into your customer journey, because I don't want people to watch this today and then go out and ask 8 people for recommendations. They all get posted within a few days of one another, fingers crossed.
And it looks a little fake.
And it flags it as a possible fake review, because they've all come in a glut at the same time. So definitely spread them out and request them as you go. I think that's a top tip.
And what do you think about sharing the names and potentially business names of customers? Because sometimes you'll see them with, Lucy Jackman, comma sense. Sometimes you'll just see Lucy, or you might see Lucy J, or things like that. Is there a good way or a bad way to do it, or is it really driven by your customer?
It's the client prerogative, really. Sometimes people work in sensitive areas and they don't want to be recognised and have their name against that testimonial. I always ask people when I'm doing the research and say, would you like to be anonymous or not? Are you happy for us to share your name or your business name? You might just say a client in the construction sector, for example, if they wanted to be anonymous, but it's up to them really in how much they want to share. So it always gives them that option.
Yeah, great stuff. So Lucy, believe it or not, we're at 29 of our 30 minutes.
Wow.
I did have a feeling this one would go in a flash. We've still got a few people watching us on LinkedIn. So if anybody on LinkedIn either wants to just say hello in the comments, or if you've got a question for Lucy, or you need to be really, really quick. If you've got a question, even if actually you watch this later, I don't know why I'm looking over here because this is my LinkedIn, you see, down on my iPad here. So now I'm talking to LinkedIn, even though I should be talking here. But if you've got any questions either now or later, please feel free to just keep popping those in the comments, and both Lucy and I will keep an eye on those, so we'll happily answer any questions later. But Lucy, if we've got people now inspired and thinking, I definitely need to do something else with my testimonials, not quite sure I have the confidence, maybe the time or the inclination to do it myself, maybe I need somebody like Lucy to come and help me. What kind of services do you offer, and what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
Firstly, I would love it if people came to me for testimonials, because like I say, it is my favourite piece of work, and it's just a really heartwarming thing to do. It's quite touchy-feely, and I like that kind of having those conversations. I'm trusted by a lot of people to interview their clients, and I'm very lucky that people trust me to do that. So my approach to doing that kind of thing is to get a warm lead from people. So you would have already approached the client and got their permission and said, okay, well, I'm going to introduce you to Lucy or someone like Lucy. And then I would contact them and have the conversation, ask them loads of open questions and ask them about their thoughts and feelings about working with you, and get all that really emotive stuff out of them, as well as the practical, logistical stuff. So, and then I go away and write it, and I also obtain the client's approval. So I go through all that process and just send the finished case study and testimonial to the client, and all they have to do is work out how to get it onto their website and wherever else they want to use it. So, one of my favourite jobs.
And so what's the best way for anybody to get hold of you, Lucy? Where are you? How do you want
So I'm
contact?
obviously on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, my website comma-sense.co.uk. If you could have a look, I've got lots of testimonials on there and case studies coming soon. So yeah, anywhere, social, website, get in touch.
Fantastic. Lucy, thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you to everybody who's been watching, although you've been very quiet. I think they're just taking it all in. If there is another hot topic you would like to hear about as one of my big business Q&As, please feel free to let me know. If you're somebody who feels like you've got stuff to share and you'd like to be my guest on a business chinwag, also let me know. Lucy, I'm sure, will share her links in the various comments in the various places today, so please feel free to get in touch with Lucy, or just connect with her anyway, even if you don't need services right now, because she shares great content. And yeah, just keep kind of networking, keep pulling in those testimonials and bringing in lots of fabulous clients. So thank you again, Lucy. Thank you to everybody else who has been watching. Have a fabulous Friday, everyone, and we'll see you on a social media platform near you very soon. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.